Welcome in FFU. I am S. Romero, the Devy Mastermind of the Fantasy Football Universe, joined today by my co-host, if you will, today, Spencer at Bugwild Sports on X. Spencer, how you doing today, my man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Mourning for you on that loss.
Yeah. We're gonna get into that, and I'll share my emotions here in a bit on that. But yeah, I mean, because you brought it up, let's go ahead and talk about the I guess you could say the Bulldog that isn't in the room right now. The Notre Dame versus Georgia. That game got postponed. Tragedy struck in New Orleans. We hope everyone is affected is well for you. Prayers to you. We hope everything's okay. Game got postponed to today. Notre Dame versus Georgia. Right now, it is still live. Notre Dame is up 23-10 with just about 10 minutes left in that game as well. Yeah, I mean, it just looks like you mentioned earlier, defensive type of game. Georgia just can't get it done. Really hurts, really hurts. But I mean, this is gonna set up for a great matchup. What's really gonna happen next, because the winner of this plays Penn State, if I'm not mistaken. So
I think so. I'm struggling with the 12-team playoff for the first time, like
yeah,
keeping track of how it's all
for
moving.
sure.
But I think so.
Shout out Dynasty Dogs, my guy Mike over there at Dynasty Dogs. Appreciate you joining in. Jamie, what's up, man? Thanks for joining in to you as well. Yeah, this is gonna be interesting. But Penn State looked dominant. Let's lead into that because this game is still live, so we could recap it at a later time. But CFB Playoffs Recap. Let's start with the New Year's Eve game, and that was Penn State versus Boise State. Man, Jetchy Heisman hype got there, did win. Hype going into here, had over 100 yards. Let's not take that away. Had over 100 yards, but just really didn't show out as he did all season as far as yards per carry. And the question was his defenses he's playing, and it looked like playing a solid defense in Penn State really shut him down. What were your thoughts on that game? Who did you like? Who did you not like? Moving forward on that.
Yeah, that's my concern with Genty all year has been that I don't know that he's decisive. Like the athleticism isn't top tier in my opinion. He's got great contact balance. I think he gets comped to like Alvin Kamara a lot at this
Mhm.
point, and it looks more Kareem Hunt to me.
Mhm.
Which is still a great player. But this generational talent, I think we kind of saw like we saw Melvin Gordon put up a year like this get drafted in the second round.
Right.
Um, he is great. I'm not taking that away from him, but I don't think he's generational. I think that this
Yeah.
showed his flaws.
Right.
I really liked what I saw from Penn State, especially. Honestly, Aller I thought looked great in this offense,
For sure.
and of course Tyler Warren, first round hype it's got to be there at this point.
Yeah, 100% agree. Matt, thanks for joining in, man. What's up? Definitely have to agree there. Gen C. All right, so Dre McBride a couple of years ago I'm pretty sure he led the nation. If not, he was like top two in rushing yards with over 1,700 at UAB. Got
Yeah,
drafted in like the sixth round. Gency's leading the nation right now, over 2,000. Um, but the competition, he played Oregon, and I said it time and time again. Oregon was not the team that they were at the end of the season. To be honest, we'll talk about this game here in a bit. Oregon played like they did at the beginning of the season. They didn't play like they
yeah,
finished off the year. But the competition does play a huge impact on it. How he evades the tackles, and we know on Penn State's side, the defensive side, they have Abdul Carter, just a dog on the defensive side
yeah.
there that really closed it up. Penn State's front seven was masterfully working and synced the whole game. You mentioned Tyler Warren. Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it's safe to say he can be the tight end one over Loveland. I know a lot of people love Loveland, myself included. Warren looks like the real deal, real legit tight end out there. Singleton and Allen. Allen had a huge game.
Yeah.
Singleton had a huge run. Allen played great, as you mentioned. I am excited to see if both Allen and Singleton declare. Both of them are eligible to. It wouldn't surprise me if one of them ends up staying. Um, in my thoughts, it might be Allen to say I'm the full guy, right?
Yeah,
It's not
I
just the
agree.
backup. But it wouldn't surprise me if Singleton did, and then Allen's like, all right, I'm gonna go. Because they both have that capital where I can see them both being day two picks. I don't think they necessarily go as day two, but I can definitely see it. I see Singleton will and Allen be like a fourth or fifth, but I can see them both in there as well. Warren, I think, put himself up into a first round tight end with that showing. We're only going, but Allen looked great. I mean, it's gonna be phenomenal to see them. play this next game. Which Jamie, I really don't want to put up your comment here because I'm not a fan of them right now. But Jeremiah Smith, go Buckeyes! I agree, man. Jeremiah Smith was out there. Have we seen a receiver just as good as him? I know we talked about him already in the past, so we don't have to talk much about him. But I mean, he's the wide receiver one, hands down, in 2027. I feel like
He's the wide receiver one, period. I mean, it was absurd. I mean, he's a kid.
yeah.
Kids aren't supposed to, like I didn't remember seeing Julio in college look even this good. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, I feel if he were out in the draft today, if he was like Abuka's age and came out, and this was his season, I mean, he'd be 101. I think in this draft class, he'd be over 10. I mean, he has everything you want. He maybe don't have that same size, but he's a big guy. He plays aggressive. He knows how to get in and out of his cuts. Everything there. Jeremiah Smith, we're going to talk about him plenty more, so we'll move on from there because he's a freshman. Tons of time to still see him as a Buckeye. Oregon. What? Without being vulgar, without getting upset about this, what in the hell happened? You know what I mean? Like, it's just what went down in Oregon. I mean, Dylan Gabriel seemed to be mid, not even mid. Jordan James had 14 carries. I don't even think he eclipsed 80 yards. I don't think it was just Evan Stewart wasn't there. They had Trayshawn Holden. I know Holden got ejected early in the Ohio State game, so he had 2 touchdowns. Great game. Ches Johnson did have a good one. Sheeferg had a good one. The defense was irrelevant. Just all overall, just Oregon wasn't there. I mean, that's just the point blank. Oregon wasn't there.
No, it was, and honestly, it was a tale of two halves. I mean, the second half they looked more like this team at the end, but that first half was some of the ugliest football I think I've ever seen from Oregon this year. Mm-hmm. I don't want to put salt in your wound, but like I've been hyping. I think Dylan Gabriel still has some NFL upside as a backup, but I mean, he's choked in a couple big moments. It seems this was his biggest moment, and he averaged what, like 3 yards an attempt in the first half.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if Jordan James was injured because I think he was like 7 for 14 or something. He looked bad, and I really like him. He looked good all year. It just, the whole thing was out of sync. I don't know if it was that time off or a moment too big.
Yeah, it just seemed odd for them to do that. It just looked pretty. It just seemed odd. It just seemed that was their coaching all week. Did y'all take a vacation, not practice? Because that's really what it seemed like. I mean, defensive backs played horribly. They did add pressure. Ohio State had 8 sacks on Gabriel, like 13 tackle for losses or something like that. So, fantastic game by them. We'll talk about them as well. I mean, like Buka, Jamie, is going to be good too. I agree. I think he's the most complete wide receiver in the draft. That's me personally. But I think he is the most complete one in the draft, just all around. He's right now he's my wide receiver one, but that's me.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know they had Tet, but yeah, I'm sure we'll talk more about them in draft time too. But like Buka's nice. Texas versus Arizona State. Texas won in OT, 2 OTs, 39-31. The game was completely different than what it was the week prior, where the running backs dominated. This one was close. Arizona State looked good when they were playing. I mean, any real takeaways here? I think it just says Ewers has to come back to me.
Yeah, I think Ewers is probably going to transfer somewhere at this point. Maybe Oregon. There's been some rumors. There's been some rumors about that. Yeah, I mean,
hopefully
ASU
not,
looked
but maybe.
great. Scatabo obviously making a name for himself. A 42-yard completion to go with his, 140 rushing yards and 80 receiving yards. I mean, he's established himself as a running back to watch in this draft. But yeah, I mean, Texas looks good. But they look beatable. I mean, this was one of those.
Yes.
I think that's an easy yes. They looked very beatable. This wasn't a game that should have been close. And I can't go without mentioning Matthew Golden's great game, but they missed a guy we're going to talk about today.
Gunnar Helm too looked pretty nice. I think the question here, Jamie, should be, can Texas beat Ohio State? I think they can if they play their best football, but Arizona State wasn't their best football. This was just an odd game for the teams that lost because it's like we've seen y'all play better. So this is just odd in general, but I think they can. Will they? Nah, the way Ohio State's playing, man, Ohio State's on a mission. Maybe Ryan Day told his guys, "Look, man, if we lose, I'm not here next year." And I know y'all won't be here because they have a bond with him, right? And he's like, if we lose, I'm not here next year. And they're like, no, we can't do that. So they both games, I mean, they're on a mission. And I think national title is what we can talk, especially with this Georgia. I thought Georgia's defense was going to show up. Nope. Texas doesn't look strong enough. And then Penn State is their challenge. Penn State can't win. I think we're having the Big Ten national championship. Um, let's go on to the topic of the day, though. We're going to talk about some players that we're interested in 2025 here. Just guys that we know are either transferring or coming back, regardless. We're going to start off with some quarterbacks in the SEC. The first one being a transfer here, and John Mateer. Sorry you can't see that up there. Oklahoma commit, though. He's 6'1", 219 pounds. 64.6 completion, 3,139 yards this past season, 29 TDs to 7 interceptions there, 31 sacks. He has some legs on him too. I apologize, I don't have the rushing stats on him, but he had over 800 yards rushing as well. Transfer from Washington State. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, Mateer was one of the bigger names in the portal. It's hard with coming to Oklahoma. I mean, that's a team that needs a quarterback. They struggled this year to kind of find their identity. They didn't have a team. I think Mateer could step in and kind of be that guy. I'm trying to pull up the rushing stats now because he's dynamic both ways. I think he's going to be good. It's definitely a step up.
I want to say it was over 1,800, like 15 rushing touchdowns, like 836. And with that, I think he is. I want to see better ball control. It happened, like 5 fumbles and like three fumbles lost. I want to see better ball control. I want to see him get a little bit of the ball out quicker because I think he can do it. Now the question is, can he do it in the SEC? That's gonna be a big step, right? I think that's where we saw Arnold kind of struggle this year. It just became too much, and that can happen. We see it time and time again where guys go to the SEC, and it's a whole different. It's a whole different, faster, aggressive type of gameplay that people are playing. So I mean, he's someone that I do love what he can do. I think he can definitely step into that leadership role, and I think he could get the respect of the locker room as well. But it's gonna be interesting to see how he transitions over, especially with the year they just have. Really, just having a quarterback like him could move mountains for them. So I want to see that for sure.
Yeah, and it was 826 rushing yards, 15 touchdowns, on a 4.6 yards per carry, which including the sack yards is incredible.
And it's crazy because when he starts to run, he doesn't look fast, but he can hit the hole and he can go. You know what I mean? Like when he's moving around in the backfield, you're like, all right, he doesn't really have the wheels. He doesn't move. It's kind of like an unorthodox way. Like I can't really explain but he's not moving so much. But then when he gets open and goes down the stream, he's gone. And he does have some good footwork to make defenders miss as well. He's not necessarily trucking over one, but he knows how to move a little bit, tap dance a little bit, move around, and get past the defenders too. You see that. So I that's something too where he has the wisdom, I guess you could say. Like he doesn't run to run. It's plays called out for him, or it's plays where he's like, there's the gap, I can get there, but he definitely looks downfield first and then running the second option on those passing plays too. So that's what I do like. Next year, we're going to talk about your guy here, Marcel Reed, who really took over for A&M, 6'2", 180, 61.3 completion, 1,864 yards, 15 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, but also had 547 rush yards, 7 touchdowns, 14 sacks, 5 fumbles, 2 lost. What do you know about Marcel Reed?
Yeah, so Marcel Reed, I think, the numbers on the surface, they don't look great, but you got to take into consideration this was 23rd in QBR this year. He had an 140 passer rating as a redshirt freshman, kind of stepping into a role that he was not supposed to fill. This was supposed to be Wegman's job to take over.
Right.
And the weapons weren't great, but coming in next year, you got Kevin Concepcion moving over, Micah Hudson coming over, and Mario Craver. Those weapons are going up. I mean, that's a great room compared to a kind of a iffy room.
Yeah. Did you say Heisman?
I think that maybe not next year, year 3. I mean, I think that this is a genuine NFL prospect. He's got to work on the ball security. You can't lose, I mean, he's on pace for like 10 fumbles
Right.
and 4 lost. He can't do that. But he's so dynamic and has a huge arm. I think if he hones it, develops, we have an NFL player on our hands, but he should pop off as a great college quarterback next year.
100%. And not, partially joking on that Heisman thing, but I mean, in reality, Concepcion Hudson was a top prospect coming into last year's freshman class. So
Yeah.
definitely could you do it because his mobility is great too. He has phenomenal vision, seeing the gaps and getting between the gaps really good. You checked in on his arm strength. He has a phenomenal arm. Sometimes though, when you have that phenomenal arm, you overthrow him. So his touch
Yeah.
needs to be better because he can throw the bullets. If you see one of his wide receivers cutting, across the middle, he can throw a dart straight to that guy. But it's the guys that are going on those long stretch routes that he has to hold in to really place that ball perfectly because he does overthrow a lot or he throws it too far out of bounds. So just finessing that a little bit, he could be a phenomenal quarterback. And yeah, what do you say, 14 sacks? I mean, he doesn't get hit, right? He's someone that
Yeah.
knows how to evade the tackles and make sure, hey, if my receivers aren't open, I'm going to go down and get open myself. Um, One more SEC quarterback we got. This is one of my guys, and him and Marcel Reed are a little similar here. That's going to be Lenore Sellers. Similar in the sense of how they play, because Sellers 6'3", 242 pounds, so definitely way bigger than Reed. That could be a knock on Reed is that size. So maybe if he grows a couple more pounds there over 200, that could definitely elevate his stock there. But 65% completion, 2,287 yards, 17 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. 31 sacks, 11 fumbles, 6 loss. So what stands out to me is obviously ball security, 7 interceptions and 11 fumbles. Even if it's 6 loss, that's still majority. He needs to get better at that, especially with running. The hindsight is, or the good thing is, he has competition coming in this year, right? Aaron Nolan from Ohio State is transferring over there as well. So he has some competition to say, hey, bro, your job isn't secure because Nolan's a top prospect too. So that's something to be on the lookout for to see what he does. I love his game. He can throw those darts. He has better ball placement than Marcel Reed, I believe, when it comes to those deep throws, but still not as good. I want him to be better at that. And yeah, when he takes off, he moves with elegance in the backfield with his feet as well. Any thoughts on Sellers?
No, I mean, I think if you're looking for the next Anthony Richardson, this is the guy. Um, and just maybe obviously Richardson needed a little more time. I think we know that, but like in terms of that meteoric rise
Mm-hmm.
and just elite player, that's who Sellers is. He
Mm-hmm.
really, there's not much more to say. By the end of the season, he had really taken over that job. He looked great, but Aaron Noland is a legit prospect. He's got to compete with. So,
Yeah,
but I mean, I think he could be QB1 going into his draft year.
for sure, for sure. And to be honest, I think he has a um, better precision when it comes to throwing than Anthony Richardson does.
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson was more athletic, I feel like, but Lenora Sellers has that better precision or accuracy when it comes to, at least when I see him playing, it looks like he's definitely more on par with where his wide receivers need to be than Richardson was in college, at least.
Yeah.
Our last quarterback, though, here is actually going to be a fellow Blue Devil. I say fellow because that's one of my favorite teams when it comes to basketball. But a transfer from Tulane, Darian Mensah, their quarterback there. He had a phenomenal season as well. Just over just over 2,700 passing yards, 2,723, 65.9% completion, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 132 rush yards, 1 TD, 17 sacks, 4 fumbles, 2 for a loss. What did you like about Tulane transfer Darian Mensah?
Yeah, I thought Mensah was one of the better quarterbacks in college last year. I mean, he was the best statistical passer in the American Conference. He was throwing deep. He looked like the real deal. I was kind of hoping that he would, kind of jump up a little bit more than Duke, but I think Duke is a strong place for him to keep building his stock. We see these guys, they transfer once, they'll transfer again. I could see him having a great year and maybe elevating Duke, or having a great year and transferring up again. But he looks legit. He doesn't have the strongest arm. He's not the most athletic or mobile, but solid pocket passer. I could see him kind of being the next, Dylan Gabriel or somebody of that level who's just very accurate, very poised,
Yeah.
and makes an NFL name for himself eventually.
For sure, he does have moves, and he the 132 rush yards. isn't he can still move. Like I don't want that
Yeah,
to think. He's just someone that definitely prefers to pass there. And you see at 17 sacks, just the awareness of the pocket, and what he needs to do to get out of there. Yes, this is factual, Jamie here. But it's gonna be interesting to see him in Duke because the ACC, I feel every year is wide open. I know Clemson's really strong, but Florida State has been strong too. But they're kind of wide open every year, and Duke really hasn't had their quarterback. We thought Malik Murphy. I do believe he entered the portal yet again, if I'm
yeah.
not mistaken. So
I
maybe
think
Mensa
because of
comes in.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
potentially.
because of Mensa. I mean, he's the highest paid official quarterback in college right now. He got $8 million from Duke,
Yeah,
4 million a year. I mean, that's not small money. I think they're making a move here. I think that's why Malik Murphy left. So
yeah.
I'm excited about him. Just tentative with the Duke landing spot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's gonna be a little bit up. It's gonna be an upgrade on competition, right? So at least he could try to go make that name for himself if he continues to be on the trajectory that he is. Um, we do have some running backs we're going to talk about as well. First, we're going to start out with the freshman this season in LSU running back Caden Durham, 5'9", 205 pounds, 5.5 yards per carry, 689 yards, 6 touchdowns, 27 receptions off 34 targets, 257 yards through the air, and 2 additional touchdowns. With Durham, man, he just looked explosive. What lacked some of the year until he got on, in the LSU backfield was that explosiveness. He came in and showed it, and then he became relevant in the pass catching situation as well, just being an extra option for Nussmeier there on the flats. I loved everything I saw about him. He has the speed, he has the vision, he has some strength as well. Any thoughts on Caden Durham?
No, I mean, I think you said it. He's elusive. He's got deceptive strength. I mean, you see 205, but he's a thick 205. I wouldn't be
Mm-hmm,
surprised if, by the time he's weighing in later, he's at like 212.
mm-hmm.
But he's definitely fast and quick. I think he's going to be a great running back. He's definitely the name to watch in that 2027 class, man. Whew.
For sure. And one thing I do want to point out is LSU does have a top commit at the running back position in Harlem Berry also
Mhm.
joining, who is a versatile, good athlete as well. So I will be curious to see because to me, I feel Durham won the backfield. He should be the
Yeah,
RB1 going in. But I am curious to see what kind of impact Harlem Berry plays entering in LSU because he is also pretty explosive. Durham's coming out of a powerhouse in Duncanville, which was known. So it'll be interesting to see what Barry does as well, just going in there and having them compete. But competition sometimes make people thrive. I mean, again, we talk about Penn State and their two running backs. Maybe LSU has a two-headed monster with them next year. Um, but one of your guys is actually a transfer here from West Virginia. That is CJ Donaldson. He committed to Ohio State, who, as we know, had a great game against the Oregon Ducks here. 6'2", 238, 4.5 yards per carry, 734 yards, 11 touchdowns, 14 receptions, 23 targets, 104 yards, and a touchdown, and one fumble loss. What did you like about CJ Donaldson?
yeah. I mean, CJ Donaldson is, first of all, he's a tank. I mean, 6'2", 240. I mean,
Mhm.
running backs aren't made like that. And he's very unique coming
Agreed.
into this room. They have a few other guys there, obviously, who kind of perform well. I mean, coming into next year, but he's unique. He's the biggest guy in the room by far.
Hmm.
Sayan's a kind of a smaller dude
Hmm.
who's going to be quarterback there next year. So this is their hammer.
Yeah.
And what I really liked about him, he averaged 3 yards after contact per carry,
Hmm.
which when you calculate that, that means he's getting hit really early
Hmm.
over at West Virginia, and he's just continuing forward.
Hmm.
He's not the fastest guy. He's not the most athletic, but he's a
Hmm.
hammer. And I think he could really pop off going to Ohio State, getting behind a better line and a wide open room next year.
For sure.
I think Jamie's going to love him.
Yeah, and he's the interesting thing is like you talk about the tank, and yes, he could run people over, but he also does move pretty good. Like as far
Yeah,
as evading the tackles, like again, he's not explosive. Like I'm not saying he's jumping off the screen or anything like that, but you watch him, he has excellent vision and he
yeah,
knows how to make defenders miss. He can slip off of them or he can run through them for sure. But he knows, I mean, look at the picture here. This is exactly what he does. He steps his foot and then he goes as well, but not necessarily the one step cut and go. He's someone that he jukes back and forth and then he's gone, right? He just plays or he kind of glides through the air in a sense and jumps through and then he's gone as well. He has good straight line speed. I wouldn't say there's like a second gear in that sleep for him to explode because
no,
he can
yeah,
break it off, but it's nothing of craziness to be like, oh wow, that's him. Um, Yeah, we agree, man. He's gonna do some work. I still think Quinshaw may come back, but we'll see what happens there. But yeah, if not, Donaldson's in great hands. I think that's gonna be a phenomenal addition to the Ohio State Buckeye room there. Another guy though that's pretty big. I mean, he chose two kind of tanks here. Is going to be Baylor's running back. That's gonna be Bryson Washington, 6 foot, 203 pounds, 5.9 yards per carry, 1,004 yards, 12 touchdowns, 22 receptions, 25 targets, 217 yards and a touchdown through the air and one fumble loss as well. Both your guys, one fumble loss, so that ball security is there. They know how to hold on and pound through it. What'd you like about Bryson, though?
I mean, what I really liked about Bryson is he didn't really start playing until November.
Mm-hmm.
He had like just over 400 yards or just under 400 yards heading into November. And then once November hit, 100 carries for 624 yards and 9 of his 12 touchdowns. He was a redshirt sophomore, so he hadn't really played. Their size, their speed. Next year's kind of weak, and I think he went under the radar because of how strong running back was this year.
Mm-hmm.
But with those numbers, I mean, he could be one of the top running backs in college football next year and could make an NFL name for himself.
Yeah.
He is bigger than I think 203. He plays bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of his listed coming out weight from high school, and they haven't updated it. And at 6 foot, I mean, he's a big boy. He bounces off of people, and he has great vision. And I think there is legit speed there. Maybe not 80-yard touchdown speed, but 50, 60-yard rushes. He's all there.
Yeah. And one thing with him, he could run straight through as well. He keeps his feet moving. That's something I always watch at the running backs too. 3 or 4 guys are on him, and he can go down, but he keeps his feet moving forward. He is someone that's going to fight for those extra yards every single play. So even if he's not your 3 down back, he could be your 3rd and 1, your goal line type of back, because chances are 9 times out of 10, if not more, he's going to hit that end zone. So I mean, he definitely has that speed and the vision to cut through. He knows how to bounce it around to it if the line is crowded, because the front seven's closing in. He can be like, oh, snap, I can't go here. Whoop, I'm going to go around. So I definitely love that there for him. Our next running back here, we talked about the quarterback in the transfer in Mensa. His running back as well, Tulane running back Mekhi Hughes, he's in the transfer portal, 5'11", 210, 5.3 yards per carry, 1,401 yards, 15 touchdowns, 19 receptions, 25 targets, 176 yards through the air, and 2 touchdowns. I love everything about this guy. I mean, the past 2 years, he has over 1,000 yards rushing at Tulane. He is literally, I feel it's why Mensa look so good, because he had him in the backfield. He knows he's someone that he can trust. He is going to ground and pound all day. He has the athleticism, the ideal size you want in that running back as well. But he also has the speed to break away and get the yards he needs as well. I am excited to see what he goes, because going to Tulane has some heavy hitters. I like Tulane's coaching, what they've done. Mekhi is one of those guys that, man, if he goes to the right spot, someone could get a monster. I've heard Oregon's in potential talks, and I would absolutely adore this. I would love this. I'd look at getting a Hughes jersey kind of deal at Oregon. I mean, but I love everything about Hughes. Any thoughts on him?
No, I mean, he's a little bowling ball. There's a couple runs that he had last year where he's running forward, he makes his cut, he makes a guy miss, and then, linebacker comes and hits him, and he just bounces off.
Right.
I mean, he's got that speed you mentioned, sweet feet. It's tough against the competition he was playing to gauge whether he's just better than the competition or is he actually great. But I think there's a legitimate chance he's actually great.
Mm-hmm.
So I think moving on to that higher level competition, showing that off would be great for him.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think he can. I think he's someone that if there's a team that lacks running backs or lacks the aggressive run and pound kind of guys, I think he could fit well with many teams and definitely be a difference factor in making the offense two-dimensional rather than one. JB, Notre Dame pulled off the victory. Did you guys expect that? Simple answer, no. Complex answer, not a chance in hell. I mean, I really thought Georgia's defense was gonna come through, and obviously Notre Dame defense is the one that came through and just shutting down Georgia. Did you expect this?
I thought with back out, I was like, maybe there's a 5% chance, but I mean, they seemed to lock. I mean, Gunnar Stockton's no slouch, and from
Yeah.
what I understood, he was having a decent game. So I didn't expect this at all. The running game and the defense let Georgia down here.
Yeah, that's what I
Um,
said. I thought the defense was going to shut down Leonard,
yeah,
and just dominate. He hit a couple pick sixes or something. It just seems they didn't. So Notre Dame played the game, and like you said, what Notre Dame versus Penn State. Again, Penn State, Ohio
yeah.
State. I think that's what it is. I think those two teams are just dominating right now. Um, let's see here. We're also going to talk about some wide receivers here, though. First we're going to start with some that are in the transfer portal or have transferred. We'll start off with your guy here. That's going to be Luke Weissung. He's New Mexico transfer committed to Arizona, 5'10", 184, 69 receptions, 111 targets, 840 yards, one touchdown, one fumble. What are your thoughts on Luke Weissung?
So Luke Bysong, I really like. He's obviously a slot guy at that size. He's not a big outside receiver,
Mhm.
but he's got good speed. But what I really like is he seems to understand the position. He's got quick twitch.
Right,
He sinks his hips well.
for sure.
Makes a good head shakes, that type of deal. Like he's great at the line.
Oh, for
And the
sure.
Arizona wide receiver room with Ted gone is wide open. He
Upset.
must have accounted for over half of their receiving yards last year. So I mean, there's
Yeah,
a real chance I think he steps up,
for
and he's
sure.
got a good skill set, special teams and whatnot.
For sure. No, I think I 100% agree with you as far as Weissung. I mean, I feel like he saw what they did with Cowing and moving him around and making that slot. He's like, oh, I can make this
Yeah,
happen too. Um, Phenomenal athlete. He has great cuts. He knows how to get underneath. He knows how to beat people deep. He's often in a kick return role as well, so he can definitely make an impact there on special teams. All around good player with some solid hands there too. I think he could feast, with them, especially if they use him as the switch army knife type of player, not necessarily in the backfield, but just all around, as a wide receiver in the slot on the outside, whatever it may be. I think
yeah,
he could definitely be a threat there for them as well. My
yeah,
guy has not quite transferred, but he's on the verge. That's going to be Hudson Clement, West Virginia. We talked about one earlier, but Hudson Clement, 6'1", 198 pounds, 51 receptions, 79 yards, 79 targets, excuse me, 741 yards and 5 touchdowns. Um, I want people to get their opportunity. What I do hate about this is last year he was a walk on, had a big game. They ended up giving him a full ride scholarship, and now he's entering the transfer portal after year two. My guy, go get yours, make it. But damn, man, I hate when teams give someone a full ride and then they're like, oh, we're gonna end up transferring out. Like that could have went to someone else, man. But that's a whole different discussion there. Football field wise, what he can do. He's a nice stretch receiver, and I want to say this slightly. His what he does to grab the ball to bring down the catch is similar to Jefferson and just that elite athleticism to bring it down. He's not as skilled as him as far as running routes, but it's definitely similar as far as once the ball's in there, he knows what he needs to do with his hips, with his body to adjust and make the catch. He is sort of more of your stretch kind of wide receiver. You are really get him more on those go routes than anything, but he does have some finesse in the route runnings. It needs to be polished a lot more. But yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do because I think he can make an impact.
yeah. No, I think I think I just saw the news when I was looking up. I think he just signed with Illinois.
Okay.
Um, so he's moving to the Big Ten, which is great. Like I don't know a lot about him, to be honest. Like when you
Mhm.
mentioned him, I was like, who is this guy? But I mean, he looks statistically he looks great. I looked up some stuff just to check in, and he, as you said, he really gets deep in a way that
Mhm.
I think he could really pop off.
Yeah,
Um,
he did
yeah, in
sign with
Illinois,
Illinois, by
like
the way.
two
Yeah,
hours ago.
yeah.
So very perfect timing. He knew he had a show. He was like, I
There
gotta
you
let you
go.
know. Um,
He, and Big Ten is about having those kind of explosive type of plays, right? So I mean,
yeah,
the fight in Illinois can definitely make an impact with him, and hopefully he goes out there and balls out even further with them as well. Our next wide receiver here is actually we're gonna call him the comeback wide receiver, the comeback receiver. That's gonna be your guy, Jordan Tyson at Arizona State, 6'1", 195, 75 receptions, 113 targets, 1,101 yards, 10 touchdowns, two fumbles lost. I think it was his collarbone that was broken at the end of the
yeah.
season. So he was in their bowl game, which could have made a big impact because this guy too, man, he is very athletic. He is polished. I do like the way he runs his routes, and he has some good hands. So, what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, this is a name. I just want to get this guy out here. I think that maybe in the guys who follow college know him, but he broke out late. Again, November breakout, 44 for 624 and 6 in November, which is absurd. All against Big 12 competition. And then, unfortunately, again, as you said, broke his collarbone, needed surgery on it. He'll be back healthy next year, but third-year breakout. Injuries have been an issue, but yeah, if he can stay healthy, I think he's possibly going to be a top 5 wide receiver in next year's draft. He's definitely going to be elite at the college level. That Arizona State team looks like they're doing something right.
Yeah.
And he's talked about not transferring. He wants to be there. He wants to, brace him up. So I really hope that he pops off and has a great next year. I think he's a name you have to know. If you can buy low on him in like your C2Cs or your Devys or anything like that, because somebody's like, this was a fluke.
All right.
Buy. He's an NFL player for sure.
Yeah, I think he did it all. You saw the impact he made once he's gone too, right? That they needed a wide receiver like him to go out there and step up. He plays aggressively too. He goes after the ball, and again, he's someone that isn't no slouch, right? He's going to make sure he can do what he can to make his quarterback succeed as well. So definitely love him, and I hope he comes back fully healthy and ready to go because the team needs him, and I think he can, like you said, have a shot at going pro. Top 5. We'll talk about that when that time comes. But I mean, he is very nice. So, it's not necessarily a surprise if I'm like, okay, yeah, I was wrong on him, but Spencer was right, So he looks good there. Our last guy, Spartan wide receiver here, and that's going to be Nick Marsh at Michigan State, 6'3", 209 pounds, 41 receptions, 63 targets, 649 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a fumble. I want to see more from him, but that's why I have it while here because he looked good. He plays strong. The size is there. I want to see more of his routes running because they didn't necessarily use him all around as much as I would like them to. An aggressive player that goes after the catch as well to make sure the ball is his. Has some good speed as well that he can win on your go routes if you need him to. And he's agile too. He can make his moves. He's not as quick. I definitely like Tyson's moves better or Clement's, even Weissong. So, but he definitely is nice for a big wide receiver. Almost like a George Pickens. I'd say Pickens is better ball catcher at the high point there, but definitely almost like a George Pickens. But what are your thoughts on Nick Marsh?
Yeah, I think his season went underappreciated because as a true freshman to do that that's absurd. But so many of these 2027 NFL class wide receivers had just great freshman seasons.
That class is nasty.
Yeah, as you mentioned, this would be George Pickens is a good comp. I like that because he's strong. Strong hands, gets deep. He's fast. He's got everything you want. It really is just a little bit more production would be nice, but going forward, he's going to get it. I think you're spot on calling him out because he went under the radar, in which he shouldn't have. So yeah, this is a big one.
This is something we talked about on our show, our New Year's Eve resolution, or just like what to do in Dynasty. I mean, Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, even Hudson, who didn't have the greatest season, all have bigger names than what Nick Marsh does. I feel like where Nick Marsh is the buy low because that class is going to be stacked. I feel that's the next elite wide receiver class for me right now. Like this class, not necessarily in on everybody. Next class, the same thing, but the following class, man, I really think that's going to be a special wide receiver class in the new era, if you will, guys. There's so much talent there, Nick Marsh being one of them that in year one, as you mentioned, as a freshman, this is just a taste. Now year two, he's acclimated during the offseason, during his summer. He's going to be getting better, right? Because he's now on the college campus. He's going to be doing these certain things, different workouts, different summer camps. Next season is going to ball out. There's a loss that can't happen at Michigan State as far as what they're doing. So, I mean, of course, that will happen. Or maybe he answers a transfer portal. I don't know. But either way, that's a wide receiver you want to watch out for sure.
Yeah.
That is the guys we have today. We talked about 4 quarterbacks for y'all, the SECs and John Mintier at Oklahoma, Lenora Sellers, Marcel Reed, even the ACC, Darian Mensah, transfer from Tulane at Duke. We talked about some running back that y'all should watch out for in Kadem Durham, Mekhi Hughes, CJ Donison, or even Bryson Washington there. And then we ended it, with some good wide receivers that should have impact next year in Jordan Tyson at Arizona State, Luke Weissong now at Arizona, Nick Marsh, Michigan State, Hudson Clement recently signed or committed to Illinois. So all exciting things there. Spencer, any other guys that really you're looking at, maybe a playoff guy that you're looking at, or anything like that right now?
I really want to see. I think Aller is still. I don't know what I know he's coming back next year, but I want to see more.
Right.
But he's the one I think he could. Like the Josh Allen comps, I think are warranted,
Mm-hmm.
but he needs to he needs to step up. So
For sure.
that's who I'm watching. I think Penn State is the only chance to beat Ohio State,
Agree.
um, which doesn't bode well for Penn State given history there. But
Yeah,
um,
for sure.
we'll see what happens there. That's what
Yeah.
I'm watching. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, as far as playoffs, I think we're gonna have to talk about Ewers, right? What does he do? Because I think if he can take Texas to a national title and win, why would he come out? There's no reason to transfer back.
Yeah,
Like you're on the grand stage, do it. But I think that's the only reason why he's gonna come back. So this next game against Ohio State, the way Ohio State's been playing is gonna say a lot. Like it does, it really doesn't matter who you beat in the SEC at this point. It matters can you beat Ohio State because right, the playoffs matter. We saw Alabama, we saw South Carolina both lose this past week as well. So that's gonna be huge as far as for Ewers and what he could do if he goes out there and has himself a game against. Well, right now to me is the best team in college football after they just dominated Oregon, Ohio State. That's going to move mountains for him. That's going to be something that is going to put the nation on notice. And then we may be seeing him in the first round if he ends up taking them to the national championship and winning. But if not, I think there's no question he comes back. I definitely want to see what happens there. Will be nice to see Ewers get a shot, if he ends up transferring just in the NFL too, but he has a lot to prove still. So that'll be my guy. Um, but for the fantasy football universe, for Spencer, thanks for joining. As always, if y'all like these shows, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to us. We appreciate everyone that's been here. Jamie, Buckeyes need that title. I need this more than with how dumpster fire the Browns are the past 25 years. 100%. That's good, man. And Buckeyes, I think they're like Spencer said, the Penn State is the only team I feel that can beat them. They have a solid defense, solid running room. They're the ones that can match up right now to them. Appreciate you joining, Jamie, as always. Don't forget to subscribe, though. Don't forget to Happy New Year to you as well. As always, we're gonna be bringing these rising star reports to y'all every week just to talk about different things in college as the college football playoffs round up. As me and Spencer, we're doing mocks. We'll have official Devy mock once we understand all right who's coming out, who's staying, because that's kind of fluctuating right now as people are going left and right now. But we'll have that for y'all here to come as well. So stay tuned and thanks for joining. And if this is our first time on with us, we hope 2025 is a happy and fantastic new year for y'all. Until next time, later.